65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
All right, so on my cue. Welcome back in, everybody, to the TPT podcast. We are joined again by Mike Tozzi. How are you doing, Mike? It's good to have you back on the podcast under some crazy circumstances from your New York Giants, but it's good to have you back on the podcast. How you doing?
Oh, it's great to be back. A couple days have gone by to where I can live with the Giants result. It was year one of Joe Shane, Brian Daboll regime. So it was already bonus territory. But going into it, all Giants Nation, myself, thought maybe, just maybe, because of the bye week, because Jalen Hurts wasn't 100%, that familiarity, trying to beat a team 3 times, all those reasons, thought we might have had a chance. But no, it did not play out that way. The Eagles are so far and above what the Giants are doing, or teams in that kind of bracket. Giants are leagues away from playing big boy football with 49ers, the Eagles, and then on the AFC side, they're just too far away from being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, still kudos, shout out to the New York Giants. Being able to get a win over the Vikings. There's even people who didn't think that they would make the playoffs. Right. I sadly were one of those guys who did not think they would get that far. And all of a sudden, boom, they snuck up on teams, and they were a good team this year. So what is some of your thoughts going on to next year? Some of the positive notes you can take away going into the offseason? I know it's really early, but it's never too early to think about next season. So what are some of your thoughts going into the new season, some of the positive things?
Well, we have a general manager that I believe in, who I think he can draft well and identify key free agents that will fit the new system that has been created. Finally have a coach that we can believe in Brian Daboll. You know, it's been Joe Judge and Pat Shurmur and Ben McAdoo, those guys, since Tom Coughlin. So finally, Brian Daboll, he's the quarterback whisperer. In fact, I think that's what happened, what went wrong in Buffalo. Josh Allen missed Brian Daboll. They weren't really able to mask any deficiencies they had in their running game or wide receiver depth outside of Stephon Diggs. So the Giants have a prized possession in Coach Daboll, and that's a reason to believe. But they have to address Daniel Jones. How much are you going to pay him? I think they'll come to an agreement. And then Saquon Barkley, he says he doesn't want to reset the market for running backs, but he does expect Christian McCaffrey type money, which is $16 million a year. I don't know. I mean, if I were the Giants, I'd probably tag him, not give him anything long term because of running back and how it's valued now. But he's been a good Giant. He's a good dude. Would like him to be a Giant for life, like he claims. But those are the first 2 order of business for the Giants: is Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and then looking at draft and free agency.
Yeah, and I was reading some of that today about Saquon's comments. So, you know, he's not looking for a big contract, but he is looking for that type of money, anywhere from $16 million. And you're seeing teams now, especially, you know, like the Chiefs and other teams, the value of a running back. What is the value of a running back? And again, Saquon, when he's Saquon, we know what the type of player he can be. But are you going to play a guy? You know, that's why you're not even seeing teams really draft running backs in the first round too often anymore.
Yeah.
So are you going to pay a guy who may not be there in 4 years, or even in 3 years have the productivity he's having this season? So it's a very, you know, tiptoe thing to tiptoe around with a contract like that with Saquon Barkley. I would personally pay him, but I don't know how much. How much can you pay him? Can you pay him that $16 million?
Yeah, I'm never a fan of letting talent walk out the door. But if I'm running the show, I really only want to pay my quarterback, my left tackle, my pass rushers, and maybe a corner or a wideout. But those are the exact areas that I'm putting all my money towards. And unfortunately, that doesn't include running back. You need good running backs, but
you do.
Isaiah Pacheco, my Rutgers Scarlet Knights, 7th round pick. Look at what he was able to flash. And if you have a good enough system, you can grab a guy in the fifth through seventh round who can actually get it done for a couple guys.
Yeah, and that's the trend we're starting to see nowadays is teams taking running backs in the later rounds because you're not going to see a guy like an Adrian Peterson or he has 8, 9, 10 productive years in a row. Those type of backs don't come too often. You get a running back and he gives you 3 to 4 years. That's a big, big deal.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, my girlfriend's like distracting me in some sort of way. I don't know what she was trying to say. So I kind of missed the last thing you said. I hate to admit it.
No, all good. I'm saying you don't typically see an Adrian Peterson or a guy that's productive for 7, 8 years in a row walk through the door. So drafting a running back in the first round or paying a running back for long term can have some regrets, even though you got guys like Christian McCaffrey
Right.
played well, got a big contract. He's doing well again in San Francisco, having kind of a rebirth, but you don't see
Well,
it
that's the
too
perfect
often.
situation for him. I mean,
Yeah.
they traded all the first rounds to get him. And for Kyle Shanahan, you can use him in the pass game, the run game, especially when they're dealing with the quarterback situation that they're dealing with. A guy like that makes all the more sense. So it's weird. It's a catch-22. You have to have a talented running back, but it's probably still not a position I'd pay unless it's like Christian McCaffrey in that offense.
Yeah, and something else that you touched on that we really have to get to on the podcast you talked about earlier kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the running back. You talked about Coach Dable. What happened in Buffalo? Do you think that's a reflection on maybe the offense, certain ways those ran? Is it Josh Allen not fully developing, taking some of the underneath stuff that he should take and kind of looking downfield that we saw Patrick Mahomes kind of doing last year or the year before that? What do you think the problem is with the Buffalo Bills? They can't get over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, after Stephon Diggs, like, Cole Beasley all of a sudden became off the street, became one of their primary guys. Dawson Knox, good red zone target. Gabe Davis never really turned up like a lot of people thought he would. So there really wasn't a whole lot to throw to, and everything becomes much easier when Davis was the offensive coordinator. You get guys wide open. Doesn't matter who you're throwing to when guys are wide open, but I don't know. I just suddenly felt like, wow, they really don't have much outside of Stephon Diggs at wide receiver. And tight end, they could probably improve, but really the running game. I mean, that's how you control games and you take a lot of pressure off your quarterback. And then if you can get a running game going, you open up play action and it allows your quarterback to be great. Cook, Singletary, they're good regular season type running backs, but I think they'll probably in the market to upgrade that this offseason. Josh Jacobs, people bring up. I don't know what Vegas plans to do with him. Give him the money, maybe not. He would be an all-purpose type back that would be great in anybody's system, but I would think Buffalo too. So they have to address running back. They have to address wide receiving depth. And really, Von Miller going down midseason, I think, those things all together. And Sean McDermott even admitted he got out-coached in this last game. So, my hot take on the radio this week has been I think Buffalo kept the wrong guy. They probably should have bumped up Brian Daboll, the head coach, and let McDermott go. But who does that? So that's that's where it becomes a hot take.
And I don't necessarily know if that is a hot take, because if you think about it, and you may be onto something here, look at the top offenses in the league. Zach Taylor, what position did he play throughout college and even had a chance to be in the NFL? Quarterback. Andy Reid, offensive mind. You have these teams that have the offensive mind. They go get a defensive mind. They already got Leslie Frazier there. He's a defensive mind. So if you have a defensive-minded coach, some of your focus can shift through the defense side. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have an offensive guy, majority of the time, what's going to be heavy with your team is offense. And they did have Dable. That was a big part of their team. And I think that could have been the difference maker in the playoffs. But let's talk a little bit.
And how you want to be built. But if I'm Buffalo, I guess they're kind of like, well, Josh Allen, he's good to go. Daboll got what he needed to get out of him, and good on his own now. So we don't need Daves anymore. I mean, not that you don't need him. They let him take interviews to be a head coach, which is what every team does. But if you're building around Josh Allen, you probably want an offensive mind. And, they stayed put with McDermott, as, common sense would tell you that the team's not going to fire their head coach to bump up Brian Daboll. They got pretty far last year. So, common sense, they were never going to do that. But if you're the Bills, you might at some point want to think about hiring an offensive head coach. But even more so, I think getting depth at wide receiver and running back is what they need to do.
That is a good point. Depth at wide receiver and running back they need. There's some running backs in the draft they could take a look at, as well as free agency, like you mentioned, Josh Jacobs. Let's talk about the winner in this game, because now we're going to get a little bit into my Chiefs and the Bengals. You had the Bengals. They looked pretty dominant, even though after that Ravens game where they didn't look so great. But then they came out versus the Bills, and they looked pretty solid versus the Bills. They forced them to do some of the things that the Bills didn't want to do. What are some of your thoughts going into this Chiefs-Bengals game? It is round 4 in Arrowhead. We see some trash talking going on between the Bengals and Chiefs.
Well, everyone's talking about Patrick Mahomes with the high ankle sprain, and I know as a Chiefs fan, you're probably concerned about that. Yet, when Chad Henne came in, he had the historic longest drive in Chiefs history, or Chiefs postseason history.
Yeah.
Andy Reid got to flex kind of who he is as a coach. I thought that was just classic Andy Reid ball. And Henne did well, but you just got to see kind of the base of that offense without Patrick Mahomes. And you get the league's best quarterback in probably the best offense. That's what makes the Kansas City Chiefs. So Kelsey was historic. Defense came to play when they needed to. But so that sets up the Chiefs have not had good luck against the Bengals the last 2 times. This year a loss, in the postseason last year a loss. Joe Burrow is kind of being talked about as the best quarterback in the world right now. And I'm sure Patrick Mahomes is like, dang, what about me? And now I'm going into this not even 100%. But I don't know. Early lean is the Bengals here just because of straight up matchup problems. But it is at Arrowhead, and the game needs to be played. I'm wondering what your feelings are with a less than 100% Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, this is a type of game where you're going to have a Mahomes. He's going to be in the pocket a lot. And a lot of people are saying that Patrick Mahomes, he's not a pocket quarterback. Well, according to PFF, I'm reading right here, he had the highest rated pocket rating for a quarterback. He had the best in the league. According to PFF, there's some sites that other quarterbacks, a better grade in the pocket than him. But he had the most touchdowns and the most yards I'm seeing right here, too, in the pocket. But that's not his go-to. That's not what makes him Mahomes. What makes him Mahomes is he plays like Magic Johnson in a Chiefs uniform. Yeah. That's what makes him Mahomes. That's what makes him special. This is a game where Isaiah Pacheco and the defense are going to have to lift them up. We see what Mahomes lifts up the team 90% of the time, 95% of the time. This is a game where you're going to have the other guys. And Kelsey's Kelsey. Kelsey's going to have to do his thing. Yeah. But these guys are going to have to play at a different level. And I don't think they're all sitting there saying, come on, guys, we got to play even better because Patrick's won. You got to do that anyway. So the attitude can't change because you should be doing that anyway. So I don't think, necessarily think they're going to be thinking that. But do they have to do it? Absolutely. Because for some reason or another, you just said it, the Bengals just have had their number.
They really have.
They just have had them on her. And it's just been the little things here and there. A fumble here, a turnover here, a drop pass here.
Do well. Bengals, like, you automatically think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, they got these stars. But really, it takes 53 to win in football. And, like, they are so detailed-oriented. They tackle well on defense. And what's been questioned the most with the Bengals, their offensive line. They got the injuries, and it's been shoddy at times. Well, Joe Burrow led the team to the Super Bowl, getting sacked as many times as he did last year. So that's one way to combat it, just Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. But last week against the Bills, that offensive line pushed the Bills around. Like, they actually dictated the game, and they allowed Joe Mixon to get going. So
that's what I'm saying. I was almost shocked that, because I might pick. I didn't think that the the Bengals were going to be able to run the ball like they did. Pirine played well. So did Joe Mixon. You know, my Oklahoma boys, where they were. I mean, that offensive line looked like the Redskins offensive line from the
Yeah.
90s. Like, I was completely shocked that they were able to play that physical, that tough in the
They do
snow
everything
like
well.
that.
They're just such a well-rounded club, and like it all stems from Joe Burrow. You have to give Zach Taylor credit, but just having Joe Burrow, someone everyone on that team can look to, and that organization can look to, and know they can rely on, that he's going to make a game that deciding play when we need him to, makes everybody else's job easier. And you might not know a whole lot of names on that Bengals defense, but man, do they play good team defense. It's like they picked up right where they left off last year. I think a lot of people were like, oh, they got hot in the playoffs. People weren't ready for Joe Burrow. They lost the first couple games this year. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe the Bengals were that one-hit wonder. Well, they've won 10 straight, and now they're going into Arrowhead, where they've beaten the Chiefs the last two times. Well, I guess they beat them in Cincinnati this year, but Arrowhead last year, and that took everybody by surprise.
Yeah.
If Mahomes was 100%, I'd feel way better about the Chiefs getting some redemption, but you throw that in with the Bengals matching up against the Chiefs the way they have in the past, and it's like early lean. I feel like the Bengals are somehow back in the Super Bowl. Yet, you know, I'm thinking about potential Super Bowl matchups. Any combination's pretty good. Eagles versus Joe Burrow, and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead here. Niners Bengals rematch, or then you go with the Andy Reid versus his former team with the Eagles, or the Chiefs 49ers rematch from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, as a fan, you know, as an NFL fan, I don't think there's a bad matchup right now. There's not a bad Super Bowl matchup. As a Chiefs fan, you kind of want to see Eagles, Chiefs, just because it's Andy Reid. It's, you know, his old team. And, you know, I know a lot of Eagles fans, so it'd be fun to see Chiefs, Eagles. Speaking of the Eagles and 49ers, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, what are some of your thoughts on that game? Brock Purdy, big test. Last pick of the draft. I feel like we hear it every 2 seconds, but he is, folks, Mr. Irrelevant, somehow relevant. He's going to the link, and you know the link. You're a Giants fan.
Yeah.
And it's going to be no. I mean, have you ever been to the link? I know you had your crazy story last
That's
time.
the crazy thing. I've never even been to the link, and I've always.
So you're alive. That means you're alive. You are alive.
I know.
Because I don't think you'd make it out of the link
Well,
alive.
I've been to the vet way back when, but I was too young for those evil people to mess with way back in the day. But I always put it, if the Giants fielded a team that I was confident enough to go see play at the Eagles, that would be the time that I'd go. And I was crazy enough to think that maybe the NFC divisional round this year's Giants was that team. Thank God I didn't have the assets to go travel to Philadelphia and go, because that would have just been hell on earth. That's a different breed of people. They almost make Red Sox Nation look friendly. It's a Philly thing. It's kind of ringing in my ears. You got Nick Sirianni at the head of it. Good luck, Brock Purdy. I mean, the Niners have everything else going for them where they can match up. They got a tough line. They got a great defensive line. Nick Bosa is amazing. They got the people to throw to with Kittle and Debo and Ayuk and CMC. They got a great coach too in Shanahan. That kind of leaves Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy doesn't find a way to have a great game, then that's going to be trouble. I just saw that Eagles pass rush get after Daniel Jones. Hassan Reddick wrecked the game and really never gave them a chance. So I think the Niners will do a better job combating that. They'll be ready for the matchup. But as of now, I just feel like it's Eagles until further notice. I think the Eagles are going to run the table and win it all. They look that good to me.
It always comes down to this. I talked a little bit about this on our last podcast. You've had quarterbacks in the past, Trent Dilford, Nick Foles, find a way to win a Super Bowl. But if you look at the last 5 to 6 guys, you tell me the quarterbacks that have won it. Yeah, it's great names. At the end of the day, your defense, if they go out and maybe get 3 or 4 pick sixes in a row, something that crazy, yes, you got a chance. At the end of the day, you have to make a play. You have to go win a game. You know, we've seen with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, he can get there. He's a winner. But at the end of the day, was he able to get over the hump with the Chiefs?
Right.
Those little things that happen. He had to make a play, and he wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, like you can only hide, quote unquote, hide Brock Purdy for so long. I mean, he did throw for 300 yards and all those touchdowns against Seattle just a couple rounds back, and like that felt the wild card weekend, especially for these top seeds, feel like another sort of like a regular season game. I don't know. It's a playoff game, but you're going against a deep-seeded team. You should be able to handle that, especially at home. But this time of year, I don't think you can hide anybody anymore. And like, that's where everybody kind of has been saying it. When is Brock Purdy going to turn into a pumpkin? And I can't think of a better place for that to happen than Lincoln Financial Field with it's a Philly thing going on. I don't see how the Eagles lose a home game with how good they're built. Like, they're so good. Here's another hot take, and I haven't even said this one on the air. I think they're good enough to win it with Gardner Minshew. That system is, and not even taking a shot at Jalen Hurts, because they need him. And if there was a reason they wouldn't win, it would be because he goes down and Gardner Minshew can't pull through. But they have the guys to throw to. They have one of the best offensive lines I've ever seen. I mean, those guys are
Lane
serious.
Johnson hasn't given up a sack in how many years? I think it was 2015, 2016. Read something crazy like that.
Yeah, and Miles Sanders doesn't get a whole lot of love, but in that system and the dual threat with Hurts and all the guys to throw to and those linemen, man, he gashed the Giants. The Giants have a pretty good defensive line. So I thought maybe things would be different having a healthy Leonard Williams. He missed the 2 Eagle games this year. It didn't even matter. I mean, they couldn't touch him. I expect the Niners to do a way better job than the Giants, but Eagles, all 3 phases. I mean, they have it covered. Their offense and defense is so special.
So it looks like he's having the Eagles over the 49ers.
I hate to say again, root for the 49ers. But.
Yeah. And this is a Giants fan, guys. This is a diehard Giants fan. This isn't like he's got some love towards the Eagles.
Oh, I hate
the Eagles have broken his heart many, many times.
Since 2013. Every year since 2013. Giants have been since then.
So exactly, there you have it, guys. 10 years of just pure hatred towards the Eagles. But he's an honest guy. You're gonna get an honest take from Tozzi here, guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, going into that Eagle matchup, I knew it was going to be tough to overcome, but there was reason to have hope. And 2 drives in to that game, I was like, how could I have ever thought that the Giants could beat this team? It felt like a college football game where one team recruits from this pool, this other team, the little engine that could, and it's just not quite the same horses you're trotting out. But Giants are on the come up. They'll be there soon. I trust their brain trust. They got some good things forming, but the Eagles are heavyweights right now. The Niners are also heavyweights, but right now I just feel like Brock Purdy is the one. And I've been on the Brock train too.
Yeah, I'm going to say I like Brock
Purdy against that defense. Then we're really starting to write some novels.
Then we can talk about maybe even him being the starter next season.
Oh yeah, and I mean, he could still probably do that even if he comes up short and at the link. I mean, it'll be on them to decide what they're going to do with Trey Lance. I'm assuming Jimmy G will go somewhere else. And then Tom Brady could be available. He grew up in the Bay Area as a Niners fan, been kind of waiting for that to happen. But
even Rodgers.
Do you want to spend on Brady when, Brock Purdy's doing this for like the minimum in a Kyle Shanahan system? So, I mean, I trust John Lynch and what the Niners are ready to do regardless. But to me, this game comes down to Brock Purdy against just a nasty Eagles D-line. I mean, what Reddick is able to do as a pass rusher, Fletcher Cox, I mean, you name it. And they have a really good secondary, like Big Play Slay and James Bradbury. They're legit. Everybody does their thing on that Eagles defense, and they're well coached.
Eagles getting it done. Our Eagles fans that follow the pod will be very, very happy to hear this from Taz. But last thoughts before we head out of here. You have the Eagles advancing. Now, give me your final thoughts on this Chiefs-Bengals game. The Bengals are right now favored to win this game. I'm not crazy upset as most Chiefs fans are. Listen, Chiefs fans, they've beat us the last 3 other times. Gimpy Mahomes, they're going to be favored, but we got to come out and be physical. We talked with Morris Lawler on the podcast a little bit. Got to be physical with this Bengals team, or they will eat us up. What are some of your storylines you think that's going to happen coming out of this game, and give me your final scoring prediction.
I mean, Andy Reid, his offensive system is good enough to find a way to carry them through this, especially at home. But it's hard to, I hate to say it, you with the Arrowhead background, being the Chiefs fan and all that, but Joe Burrow is ready for this. He's literally never lost besides the Super Bowl in the postseason. So as long as that's the case, and Jamar Chase is rocking and rolling, T. Higgins is rocking and rolling, Joe Mixon doing his thing behind an offensive line that people questioned, I trust that offense to make big plays when they need to, and their defense really tackles well. If Patrick Mahomes is able to heal up and move around better, I mean, the guy still staggered for a few first downs, like while he dealt with that high ankle sprain. So I can never rule anything out with Patrick Mahomes. He can throw off 1 foot. He can just use all arm. He's so talented. But I just feel like that at some point has to burn the Chiefs. And, if they're able to get out of this one alive, they get that bye week before the Super Bowl, that'd be great. But the early lean is the Eagles versus Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl. And, that's kind of sexy when I say it out loud.
Eagles and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. That is Toz's pick for the Super Bowl. That would be a good one, but it would be even better if we could sneak my Chiefs.
And Andy Reid Super Bowl would be fun too. I'm here for that as well.
Andy Reid, hey, at least if the Chiefs or the Bengals can get there, they can beat those hated Philadelphia Eagles.
I had been preaching Niners since about halfway through the season, but now that I saw that the Eagles were for real last week, and
you had Niners
overreacting because they crushed my team the way they did, but I don't know. They seem pretty hard to match up with. Good luck stopping that offense. Like, the Niners have the defense to do it, but I just feel like the Eagles at home are going to figure it out.
Eagles getting it done in the Super Bowl. Great analysis from my man Toz here. Toz, we're going to let you go. But before we go, tell everybody where to find you, where to listen to you, and where people can find some of your stuff.
Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m., 96.9 The Game, In the Zone with Brandon Kravitz. I'm the producer and co-host. And then my social media handles for everything is at Tozcast, Tozz cast. Talk pretty much Magic basketball, Yankee baseball, Giants football, and anything else big that happens in the sports world. Shout
out Orlando. They're getting there. Even though I'm a Lakers fan, shout out the Magic.
Big win over the Celtics last night.
Yeah, they did. They took care of the Celtics. They're a good and upcoming team. So if you guys live in the Orlando area, or if you're a sports fan in general and you're not listening to my man Toz here, then there's a problem. You just don't want sports. You don't, because this is the guy to listen to. I listen to him all the time. So make sure you guys go check that out. We will see you guys next time on the TPT podcast.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell, follow us on all social media, and check out our videos each week.